You probably think reputation at work is built by effort, by being reliable, professional, consistent. But here's the dark truth. Effort alone doesn't protect your image. Sometimes the harder you work, the faster your reputation erodes. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because the system quietly interprets your behavior in ways you never meant. It's not the big mistakes that destroy people's careers. It's the small, invisible ones. The tone you didn't mean. The silence that got misread. The way you handle pressure when no one explains the rules. Most people never notice the slow decay of how others perceive them until it's too late. So today, we're dissecting the silent mistakes that quietly ruin your reputation at work. Not the obvious ones, the ones you don't even realize you're making. Mistake 1, the overavailability trap. It starts with something that looks good on the surface, being available. You answer messages fast, you say yes often, you jump in when others hesitate. It feels like teamwork. But here's the hidden cost. The more accessible you are, the less valuable you appear. In workplace psychology, there's a rule. Scarcity amplifies perception. When people can reach you anytime, they subconsciously assume your time isn't scarce. And if it's not scarce, it's not powerful. You become the reliable helper, not the strategic asset. You're seen as dependable, but replaceable. And soon you'll notice others start expecting you to carry more, but recognize you less. Being too available doesn't build trust, it builds dependency. And dependency always comes without respect. Mistake 2, confusing modesty with invisibility. Most good employees are taught to stay humble. Don't brag, don't self-promote. But in the corporate world, that advice is half a trap. Because humility without visibility looks like silence. And silence in a political environment looks like weakness. You think you're being respectful by not talking about your wins, but others don't see that as respect. They see it as lack of impact. They think if it mattered, they'd have said something. Every achievement that stays unspoken slowly dies, and your reputation dies with it. This doesn't mean becoming loud or arrogant. It means becoming strategic. Learn to narrate your work. Mention outcomes, not effort. Subtly, but consistently. Visibility isn't ego. It's survival. Mistake 3, emotional leakage. This one's dangerous because it hides behind stress. Every workplace has pressure, deadlines, unfairness, endless politics. And sometimes you don't even realize that tension leaks out in micro-expressions, tone, or words. A slightly sharp reply, a sigh in a meeting, a fine that sounds like, "I'm done." People remember emotional energy more than logic. Even if your work is perfect, if your presence radiates exhaustion, frustration, or defense, they feel it before they evaluate your work. And perception beats facts. Always. Reputation isn't built on your truth. It's built on what people think your truth is. The best professionals learn emotional containment, not fake smiles, but calm control. When chaos hits, they steady the room because people equate emotional stability with competence. Mistake 4, over-explaining yourself. This one ruins credibility quietly. You make a point in a meeting. Someone disagrees, and you start defending. You explain, then re-explain, then clarify. The more words you use, the less confident you sound. In power psychology, brevity signals certainty. When people in authority speak, they rarely over-justify. They drop a line and let silence do the work. Over-explaining trains others to doubt your point. You become someone who argues for space instead of commands it. When you speak, pause. Let your words breathe. You'll be shocked how silence changes the power dynamic. Mistake 5, mismanaging boundaries. Boundaries define reputation more than kindness ever will. Most employees think being liked protects them, but in truth, it's boundaries that make people respect you. When you say yes to everything, you train others to treat you like a resource, not a person. When you say no, calmly, firmly, you remind them you have value. Boundaries communicate self-worth, and self-worth is magnetic. Every person who burned out in silence was once afraid of disappointing someone. And every person who rose quietly learned that protecting your focus is the ultimate power move. Mistake 6, neglecting nonverbal reputation. Reputation isn't what you say, it's what your presence broadcasts. Your face, your walk, your posture. These are silent messages people read instantly. Walk into a room distracted, rushed, half present, they sense disorganization. Walk in composed, aware, calm, they sense leadership. Micro behaviors shape macro judgments. If your body language doesn't match your words, people believe your body. That's how silent reputations are formed, not by achievements, but by the energy you radiate. Mistake 7, chasing fairness. Here's the cruel truth. Workplaces aren't fair, and chasing fairness drains your reputation faster than injustice itself. When you keep pointing out unfairness, even if you're right, you sound like someone fighting the system, not mastering it. People start labeling you as emotional, dramatic, difficult. It's not about staying silent. It's about choosing battles strategically. Mature professionals don't seek fairness. They seek leverage. They learn when to speak, when to wait, when to win quietly. That's how you build respect in an unfair game. Mistake 8, undervaluing perception management. There's what you do, and there's what people think you do. Both matter equally, sometimes the second more than the first. You might be efficient, hardworking, loyal, but if the story about you is weak, you lose influence. Every company runs on narratives, unspoken stories about who's reliable, who's political, who's leader material. If you're not shaping your narrative, someone else is. Reputation isn't built on facts. It's built on stories told in rooms you're not in. And that's why managing perception isn't manipulation, it's protection. The pattern behind all these mistakes. Every one of these silent mistakes comes from one root cause, a misunderstanding of how power psychology operates in modern workplaces. You were trained to perform, but you were never trained to position yourself. Reputation is position. It's how the room categorizes you as useful, replaceable, threatening, or essential. And you're sending signals all the time through tone, energy, timing, silence, presence. Each one is either increasing your perceived authority or draining it. The shift that changes everything. Once you start noticing the invisible rules, everything flips. You stop wondering why some people rise faster with less work. You stop chasing approval. You start managing perception with intention. That's not politics. That's awareness. The workplace isn't a merit system. It's a perception system disguised as one. But once you learn how to play consciously, you stop being a pawn. You become the strategist. So pause for a second. Ask yourself, which of these silent mistakes have been quietly rewriting your image while you were busy working hard? Because awareness is your turning point. Subscribe, not for motivation, but for clarity. Because clarity is power.